How's your day gone?
Doing great. I'm really looking forward to.
You went away, Kai. He was there and now he's gone.
And now I'm back.
He's back.
Yeah, he did it.
Yay!
I like your energy, Jake. I'm really fascinated by it.
Well, you know, one thing you can always count on with me is energy. You may not get any content, but we'll get energy.
And that's the most important thing.
And hopefully some nuggets along the way, right?
Yeah, you know, and that's what remains actually. So the energy. We can forget words, ideas, but never the emotion we get.
This is true. Well, the summit seems to have been going nicely.
Yeah, so great speakers, insightful interactions. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I've joined when I could. You kind of know my circumstances, but I have I always enjoyed the different perspectives.
Yeah. I like that. Really, I come to learn. I come to interact. Really challenge my thoughts and learn from the speaker, the guest, and everyone.
Yes.
So I'm fond of learning. I like that.
Yes. Oh, me too.
I look at myself as a permanent student, a lifelong student.
Yes, I agree.
So we're waiting for Avni. Avni is supposed to be the moderator of this session.
Okay. I was just going to share the Facebook link. I guess I shared it on my page. I can't tell. There's Avni.
You did something.
I did something. Okay. I was just sharing it to my group.
Yeah, I'll do the same.
That's good.
Avni is here.
Avni!
Hello, welcome. Hi, everyone. How are you? Let me take away the APS's background.
And Alessandro. I've seen Alessandro on some of the...
C'est bon, connecté à la...
Hi. Welcome, everyone. How are you all?
We have Jane and Avni. You can imagine how we have two powerful energies here.
And also two great friends, you know. Kais, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, totally. Hi, Jane. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Hi, Kais. Hi, Alessandro. Hi, Alejandro, yeah?
Alejandro?
Yes.
Alessandro, Italian. Alessandro.
Alessandro, okay, yes. So welcome everyone. One moment, please. Let me just put this thing on a different screen. Okay, so Kai, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. The floor is yours, ladies.
Yeah. So hello and welcome everyone to the 5th Annual International Leadership Coaching Summit organized by Excedentia International Institute and our very good friend Kai. So my name's Avni Martin. I'll be your host and moderator for today. And now, just as we're waiting for maybe a few more people to join us, and before I introduce myself and our amazing speaker, Jane, I thought we can start off with a very short game. You may have played this game before. It's a very simple warm-up word association game. And since our topic is diversity, we will play a game with diversity as our word, okay? So I would love you all to please turn on your video cameras. So I'd love to see all the faces. Okay, so turn on your video camera so we know who's playing the game. And the game goes like this, and this is why we need the video camera. So let's just say Kais starts the game off. He says diversity, and then Kais will throw the ball to Jane, and he will say, Jane, catch. Jane catches the ball, and then Jane has to say a word that is associated to diversity, but not diversity. So any word, Jane, you want to make up that's associated to diversity, okay? Whatever that is, okay? Race, inclusion, color, acceptance, love, perspective, whatever comes to your mind, okay? And then Jane will throw the ball to Alessandro, yes? And you actually have to catch the ball, okay? Literally as if a ball is being thrown at you, you actually have to catch the ball. And you say the next word that comes to your mind, okay? And we have to be very quick and snappy. So just as we're waiting for people to enter, we thought we could play this game. How does that sound, Jane?
It sounds great, and I have a ball.
Oh my God! That's amazing!
So we can pass the ball.
Yeah, and this was completely unplanned, obviously,
exactly right.
pretty unplanned. We've got synchronicity. Absolutely, synchronicity going on here, absolutely. Okay, hello, Amina, lovely to see you. Hi, Yasmin, nice to see you too.
Hello.
It's so good to see faces, so welcome everyone. Yay, Doha. Hello, how are you?
How are you doing?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Who else? Can we have Huda, Sana, Hela, Jua, and Henda, Pascal, Monira. Hello, everybody. Love to say hello to you all.
Hello.
How are you all? Hi. So the request on the table is, if you can turn on your cameras, please do, so we can play a 2-minute game as more people are pouring in. Okay, who's ready to play the game? Are we all in? Yes. Yasmin, are we all ready to go? Okay.
Sure.
If you don't have your camera on, do we assume that you're not playing the game, or do you want to keep the camera off for whatever Wi-Fi reasons? And if you're unmuted, you can still play the game. How about that? Okay, because we just need to hear the word. All right. So ready, steady, go. The first round is a warm-up round, okay? And the second one is a proper one, okay? So let's go. So Jane, since you have the ball, you do the honors. You start with the word diversity. Yeah, you start with the word diversity and you throw it to somebody, say their name, they have to catch the ball. And then whatever word comes to your mind, there is no good, there is no bad, there is no ugly, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's just fun, okay?
All right.
And yeah, there we go. Let's play.
Here's the word diversity. I am tossing the ball to Yasmin.
Change. I'm pushing the ball to Kais.
Thank you. I'm raising on the ball. Now I'm sending the ball to Doha. Richness.
You have to say the word. What's the word? What's the word association from change?
Richness.
Richness. Wow.
So thank you, guys, taking just about to Emina with the impression.
Thank you, Doha. Well, my word is achievement.
To whom?
To whom? To Alessandro.
Thank you. Let's say greatness. To who is Avni?
Oh, thank you. Love. Pass it on to Kais.
Second turn, so I did something. So
It's okay.
Jane, uniqueness.
Okay. I'm
All
going to
right.
the ball and say acceptance.
Wow.
Beautiful.
I'm going to pass the ball
Beautiful.
to Sana. Her microphone is off, so Sana or Sana, are you playing?
Sana, are you playing? If you're playing, can you let us know? At least you put your hands up on the reactions button so we know that you are playing. I think Monira is playing, as far as I know. Yes, Monira?
Yes.
Yes, great.
All right, I'll pass the ball to you, Monira.
Thank you. The concept of the term? What?
Acceptance was the last word.
Thank you, thank you. I love this. To Hela connection.
Okay, thank you. Wonderful. Well done, everyone. Well done. Thank you. We'll pause the game there, okay? I'll just welcome everybody else in and get the ball rolling, quite literally, for the rest of the webinar. I'm sure Jane has got a lot planned, so we will not do round two. So everyone who just joined us, we just played a game, word association game, from diversity to all kinds of other things, and it ended up with, after acceptance, what was the last word?
Connection.
Connection. That's it. Amazing. Fantastic. So let's get started. Okay. So welcome everyone. And I think another couple of people are still pouring in. Perhaps Jane, what do you want to do? Do you want to play one more game whilst people are coming in, or do you want to?
I'm doing something at the beginning as well, Avni. So thank you for asking.
Fantastic. Okay, fine. Great. So welcome everyone. Our intent for the session today is to explore and reflect on how we lead ourselves and how that influences our perspective on diversity. So a very quick introduction for me. I'm a coach myself, ICF. I'm an NCC coach and I run a coach training school. And I have the pleasure of introducing Jane. So let me introduce Jane. So Jane is a good friend. She is a self-proclaimed, unplanned entrepreneur that founded Take the Next Step to empower others to go for their it. She positively interrupts others' spaces to help them stop, pause, and think as she uses tools from a variety of disciplines, including coaching, training, and speaking. Jane uses her expertise from her rich background, which includes experience from the academic world and athletics at college level to corporates, nonprofits, business owners, entrepreneurs, and also teams to help leaders co-create a path in developing and strengthening their self-leadership. So without further ado, I'd love to pass it on to our good friend, Jane Bishop. Thank you very much, Jane, and welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
It's such an honor to be part of the summit again this year. It was a wonderful experience last year, and I've been able to drop into a few prior sessions. And one of the things I was sharing with Kai before we started, one of the things that I enjoy about learning is getting different people's perspectives and thinking about, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that. It might not work in my context, but I might relate to people or I might connect with people. It does. So there's just a richness when we can come together in this virtual space from my perspective anyway. So thank you all for giving your time today, whatever time zone you're in. It happens to be morning where I am. I know it's afternoon and evening, late night for some of you. So thank you for your alertness. And here's a couple of things that I would like to invite you to consider during our time together. I want us to collaborate together either by you speaking or the chat box or both. I am not a lecturer. So if it gets to a point that nobody is engaging, I can wait. We can pause. We can think. You know, if I was in a gym somewhere coaching and my players were not responding as I was hoping they would, there was always the encouragement of how many laps would you like to do around the basketball court until we get that right. Anyway, just a little play on some athletic humor. All that to say, think about all that you have heard to this point of any of the sessions that you've been in. And I would like for you to take just a moment and just think about or actually write down words or phrases that you've heard this week. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do that. So type or write, whatever works for you. And if you want to share something in the chat box, I'd love to hear that. Something you have heard. You know, sometimes news reporters will say word on the street. So as you have captured that, then I would like to invite you to start applying that to your own self leadership. Now, our topic today is eye discipline. So it's where our eyes are focused is typically where our body is going to follow, as well as our mind. Leadership in its basic form is influence, and how we lead others is a direct result of how we lead ourselves. So when we're talking about diversity, or we're talking about relationships, or we're focusing on any aspect of life and business, how we lead ourselves is going to impact how successful and effective we are. Now, the 5 best practices that I use in my own life and I share with others, they're not outstanding, they're not unique, they're not necessarily headline newsworthy. In fact, there may be some that will be thinking, well, how simple is this and how basic? Yes, and that's my point sometimes as coaches and leaders. It's helpful for us to go back to the basics and review and think about our own self-care, our self-leadership, to make sure that we're still positioned to carry out what our gifts and our skills and our passions are to make a difference in others' lives. Because then, in essence, I think that's what every coach desires to do in some form or fashion. Excuse me. You each have a set of experiences that are unique to you. Mine are not better than yours. Yours are not better than anybody else's. They're unique to our experiences and our skill set. So what I want to invite you to do today is allow yourself to play. Allow yourselves to be stretched even in some of the techniques and tools that I'm going to use visually. And, it's sort of like when you're exercising or working out, you get so many repetitions in, and then you think, oh, I can't do anymore. You've worked the muscle to exhaustion. Well, then you do one more. So I want to challenge you in our time together today that when you get to that edge of uncomfortableness or boredom or thinking this doesn't relate to me, I want to challenge you to go just a little bit further. Just see where that might lead you. Think about where your own thought process and what you are gleaning and extracting from anything that I share or anything that the collective group shares that you can relate and apply to yourself. So in that sense, we're going to collaborate, together. It won't be that that specific, but it will be a collaboration that we do together. So in our invitation to play or to work along, I want to invite you to either get a blank sheet of paper, or if you're one of the people that like to use a writing tablet or anything like that, but whatever your tool is, I want you to draw a stick figure. Just draw some kind of silly stick figure or something on that blank sheet of paper, that card, or that writable tablet or screen. So take just a moment, do your little creative stick figure. This will not be shown to the group unless you choose to. Don't worry. Now, here's what I would like you to do around that stick figure, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds. So for those of you in the audience today participating who are the overanalyzer and want to think through 10 times before you write something down, this is not the time or the place. You've got about 30 or 40 seconds. And I want you to write around that stick figure as many roles as you have had or have in your life. And I'll give you a quick example just to get the brain started. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a coach, I'm a former athletic coach. You get the opportunity of titles that you have had and do have. Take 30 seconds and create that around your stick figure. And when you have several, if you would if you have your camera on, just kind of wave your hand, or if you don't, if you would just use one of the reactions on the screen page so that we can
Okay. Are
kind
you
of see.
feeling okay?
All right.
And can I request everyone to please mute yourselves unless you're sharing something,
Yes.
so that the audience doesn't get disturbed with the background noise. Thank you.
All right, take a look at what you have captured around your stick figure. Now, based on what you have written down for yourself, what's the common theme? And please answer, either unmute yourself and answer for a moment, or use the chat box. What is the common theme in the titles that you have held and or do hold? Action, authenticity. Thank you all for participating and playing. I love it. Now, as you think about what the common theme is, and you're looking and thinking about this for yourself, what skills have you, think about the skills that you have utilized, the responsibilities that you have had and or do have. You know, think about what this says who you are today. And that's where we begin to be reminded of our core. Our core. I discipline, and I do have my little, you know, prop, the little basketball, but I discipline is about mindset. It's about focus. It's about preparation. It's about practice. One of my favorite retired American football players is Tony Romo with the Dallas Cowboys. He has transitioned into a great football announcer. And one of the things, because of his playing experience, he uses different terms to describe things that are going on the American football field. And he talks about, with defense, it's about eye discipline. And when the defense is not able to stop the offense, often it's because the players, their eyes are going all over the place. They're not disciplined to focus on the task and their assignment on the field. And eye discipline, when we can stay focused and about mindset, it does help us stay aligned with our core, the core of who Jane is. Now, for me, here's what core means. It means character. You know, what is my character? It's my operating system. What are my values? What are my beliefs? It's also about relationships. You know, the relationships that I engage in and invest in, as well as relationships that I allow into the space in my life. Are they healthy or are they unhealthy? Are they contributing to my interest? It's about relationships and my relationships with the intangible. You know, how do I think and view and feel? It's also EQ, emotional intelligence. We all have emotional intelligence. And when we nurture it and it's healthy, then that can serve us well. But the core of who we are as leaders, it's similar to our physical core. Do we have any exercisers in the group today? Anybody that works out or does, you know, any kind of yoga, it could be running, it could be lifting weights, whatever your form of exercise is. whatever that is, but physically, our body is designed physically to be aligned. And our physical core is that midsection in our body, and that's what keeps everything holding up. You know, I'll give you a very personal example. My mother, whom I'm the primary caregiver right now in this season in life, she lives with dementia. And she's at that stage where she's in bed now more than she's out. So the physical core, her ability to sit up for long periods of time is waning because that core is weakening, that physical core. So as leaders, when we are consistently not focused, when we are consistently not prepared, and we're not consistently practicing who we are and staying aligned with the core of who we are, then our influence effectiveness on others is undermined. And let me just pause there for a moment to see if that raises any questions or thoughts or comments. Just and we'll just pause for a moment. Like a professor I had one time, if there's not a need to respond, then we'll move on. But I do want to give you a moment to stop, pause, and think. You can either comment in the chat box or take yourself off mute. Then I will take that as ready to move. Avni, were you about to say something? You were...
No, I was just going to add, I think everyone's gone into a very deeply reflective mode, Jane.
That's okay. That's just fine, because the intent is necessarily not to hear anything new, but to have the opportunity to have this time and space for ourselves individually so that we can check in with ourselves, check in with our leadership, check in with our alignment. In my experience through life, I have sort of developed my core fives. Okay, I like to use fives a lot because then you can use the fingers on your hand to remember. But for me, the core of who Jane is to be flexible without compromise, to have integrity, to value other people, excellence is always a standard, consistently a standard. I will not compromise excellence, intentionally anyway. And then strategic. That's the S word for the acronym fives. It means purposeful. So I would invite you to think about, what are your core fives? What are the fives that describes who you are, that at the core of who you are, that keep you aligned, that keep you anchored and planted as you move forward in life? And I'm using life all inclusive of personal and professional. As I share my 5 best practices, Avni, help me keep up with the chat. If we get any questions or comments, interrupt me. Just say, stop, Jane.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you. Yeah.
So with that, but I want to just kind of quickly share my 5 best practices that help me in self-leadership, giving you a little brief understanding of how I apply that to my life. And in the process, I want to ask you to begin thinking about how to extract your 5 best practices. Maybe one of mine will trigger something that you know you do, that's one of your best practices, and it's been solid and it's been consistent and it's helped keep you grounded and aligned with your core. And let me just say up front, for those of you that don't do sports, don't like sports, don't care about sports, I'm using basketball terminology, but just stay with me. I will transfer it to non-basketball application. But the first best practice is block out. There is a technique, if you know about basketball, that especially on defense, well, on offense anyway, when either your teammate or the other team is shooting the ball, you want to block out. You want to protect that space, because if the ball doesn't go in, you want to be in a position to get the ball, just like we did at the beginning. When the ball is passed to you, you want to be in position to get the ball so you protect that space. Some people will call it box out. Some coaches will do that, but it's blocking out, and it protects that space. Here's how it relates to self-leadership. If we want to lead from the inside out, we have to learn to block out. We have to protect our space. We have to block out distractions. We have to block out time and energy wasters. Block out those things that derail us from our goals. You know, I don't think he would mind me using this, but when Kai and I were talking before we started, you know, it's late in the day. I think it's 5 or 6 o'clock. Well, it's after 5 o'clock, I think now, Kai, where you are. Is that correct? 5 p.m. And it had obviously been a long day to this point, and here he is again out of his giftedness, you know, giving the summit. So in those times and spaces where we find ourselves maybe lower energy, you know, how do we practice our block out skills so that we can focus on what we need to be doing and focusing on at the moment? It's kind of like the shiny object syndrome. Oh, let me try that. Oh, let me try that. This strengthens our core. When I was coaching, the strongest defensive player that I had, trust me, and I was the head coach of women's basketball teams and the assistant coach of men's teams, two men's teams. And by far, she could protect that territory around the goal, and no one was getting around her. She was that strong, and she was that practiced and skilled in her technique. Best practice of self-leadership, leading inside out, develop your own block out technique. Second best practice, pivot. Now, I learned to pivot long before it was this trending word of pivot in our COVID era. And one example is, I was a very mobile family. We had a very mobile family growing up. My dad was in the military. So the first 18 years of my life, we lived in 11 different states, 11 different cities, 5 different states, and 1 foreign country. And there were times that we were living in a place 11 or 12 months, and that was it. And then we would move on. Now, I loved it. I thrived on it. I thought it was a wonderful experience. My brothers, maybe not so much that they did. But the pivot of life is similar to the pivot of basketball. In basketball, that skill is you're driving down the court, or you're moving down the court with the ball. Yes, there's the bouncing ball. This is to wake any of you up that are going to sleep. And with that, you run into a defensive player you can't get around and has blocked the play. So you have to stop, pick up the ball. The key is one foot cannot move. You can twist on the floor, but you cannot pick it up off the floor. You can take the other foot up and turn and rotate and try to get a different perspective to pass the ball or to find another way around this defensive player. So here's the transfer for me for self-leadership with pivot, the basketball pivot. It's about poise. It's about perspective. It's about position. And it's about purpose, all while you're staying planted. Every day when my caregiver arrives to take care of my mother for a few hours to allow me to do other things, like being with you today, we go over our plan, and we always end with, that's the plan at the moment. We pivot often during the day, and sometimes we have to keep pivoting and trying to find where we can give that outlet pass. The thing about pivoting and learning that skill with self-leadership, it builds resilience. It builds resilience. You may want to say more about that in just a few moments. So we have blocking out and we have pivoting as good practices for self-leadership. Let me pause again, a brief moment. What are you thinking? What's showing up for you? Are you just so bored you're not getting anything?
It's actually really exciting. I'd love to hear from other people. What do you think as well? I'm just imagining, pivoting our perspective just a little bit as and when needed, right? So that we can have greater poise, we can have a better position and better perspective. So yeah, others, what are your thoughts? What's happening for you right now?
I'm really enjoying the session so far, James. I like every word you were saying. So for me, pivot is about flexibility, and I like the way the connection you made with resilience. So you can't be resilient without being flexible and having that what Stephen Covey calls the solution-oriented mind. So really,
yes. Great. Thank you for both of you. Who else wants to share their thoughts? There's no judgment. Remember, as coaches, this is a judgment-free zone. If you want to voice what you're thinking, this is a good place to do that. Not required, but certainly invited, so we can learn from each other. Well, let's continue then. The third best practice, boundaries. And I've given just a framework of a basketball court for those that might not be familiar with the sport. But a third best practice for me is boundaries. In the game of basketball, you have to stay within the lines of the court. If you cross the line, these sidelines, then you're out of bounds and you lose the ball. So as we're working and strengthening and realigning the core of our self-leadership, boundaries are essential. There's an old book, so this is not a phrase of my origination, but I use it with people often. No is a complete sentence. Let me say that again. No is a complete sentence. Boundaries are what gives us structure, and this is one of my Jainisms: structure binds anxiety. When you are on a basketball court, you don't have to wonder, okay, how far can I go? Where are the lines that I cannot cross? Because they're marked for the players. So as we're leading ourselves, structure binds anxiety, and in the absence of structure, we must create our own. New coaches especially, I find that I work with, or new business owners or new leaders, in any setting, they often find it a challenge to create those boundaries and structure at the beginning. Why? What's the most common reason that people are challenged with that when they step into a new role?
I believe Kais has a question or something he would love to share.
Yes, Kai.
Yes, a question actually. It makes sense that you're calling this approach as I discipline, because I think you can get that high level of discipline without having boundaries. And I'd like to ask you the question, the link you make between discipline and freedom.
That's a great question, Kai. The link between discipline and freedom. That could be a rather loaded question in this day and time, but for me, discipline creates the freedom that I can be the best I can be, because it holds me accountable in a way that utilizes my gifts and skills in the best possible way. I think sometimes people confuse discipline and freedom, because some people's definition of freedom may be, well, I can do anything that I want because I'm free to do that. Yes, I'm free not to choose to be the best I can be. I have that freedom. However, I choose not to exercise freedom in that way, but to practice disciplines so that that frees me up and releases the best Jane possible. Now, Kai, I don't know if that answered your question at all. That's what comes to top of mind. So what would you like to add to that or follow up with?
Really, I'm speaking of the cat. I will add really something I got from what you said. I think this freedom also is being yourself, not being a follower.
Right.
Just in the flow, trying to be this or that guy. So just being yourself. And I think, and that's what you exactly said. So to be yourself, you need to be disciplined.
Yes.
You need to prioritize, know who you are, what you'd like to do, and really set your boundaries.
Exactly. Good. Any other thoughts or comments? That's yes, Alejandro, yes.
Yeah, for example, what is the link, the relation with boundaries and flexibility? Because for me, no, I have boundaries. Boundaries is just we create with our mind, right? So I don't personally like to fix boundaries, but I understand boundaries are also the limit to save yourself from a danger, maybe to go too far or go lose your way or some things like that. But it's more a value to protect. It's more some things to a trigger to say, okay, pay attention. This is the boundary. But yeah, I like the metaphor of the basket, and I don't play basket, so I like. And I think also this is diversity. How you bring your own value as a discipline. And I was commander for 20 years. I know what is discipline, and I like, but I also like I have discipline to be more creative, more flexible. And so it's interesting also what you say, because it's personal, and yeah, I appreciate it.
Great input and insights, Alejandro. Thank you for sharing that. And often people are challenged and struggle with the structure and the creativity and flexibility, because internally it becomes a little bit of a conflict. And here's one of the things that I offer people that do that. You've obviously learned this and developed this. What structure gives us is kind of like going down the river in a canoe or a boat. Okay, it's the riverbanks. It doesn't limit my flexibility, and it doesn't limit my creativity. In fact, it enhances that. I learned this in a company that I worked with for a long time, because the leadership and the boundaries and structure was always changing. So I learned to get very adept at where the new boundaries were, because then I could be released to be Jane, to be flexible and creative within that structure. So I didn't see it as holding me back, but allowing me the opportunity, as you said, to be yourself in that setting. But I do think that's key that you brought up, that sometimes people have that built-in natural rub about structure and flexibility and creativity. Good.
I would say this is the power of the meaning that we give to the word.
Yes.
For the same word, completely change. And this is what we do in coaching. We give another perception. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. I mean, Kate, I'm going to chase one rabbit because for what you have said, but often when I'm teaching teams, I will say, now I'm about to say a word, and I want everyone to write down the word that immediately comes to mind when I say that particular word. And in fact, let's just do this right quick. Well, it's a 60-second sidetrack, but it applies. So I'm going to say one word and then everybody write down what immediately comes to mind with that word. Okay, ready? Everybody ready to write or type? All right, here's the word, conflict. Okay, opportunity. Trauma, peace. Communication, planning. Okay, you've just illustrated Alessandra's point. It's an example of how we give meaning to words. Why did no one write down the word conflict? We wrote down words that we apply meaning when we hear the word conflict. So that's just a sidebar. However, it's but it's that meaning, and how does that relate to our leadership and diversity? Diversity is often put in the context of either gender, race, or lifestyle. You know, kind of those are the three most common that the media all gives us. But diversity is so much more. It's a diversity of thought. It's broader than that. And we'll circle back around that to the end. So I don't want to chase that rabbit too much. Anything else right now before we do the last two best practices? Are you still with me? Are we together?
If I have a curious question.
Yes.
Can you give an example of create structure to bind anxiety?
Okay, great question, Peter. I think you broke up a little bit. You want an example of how structure binds anxiety? Did I hear that correct?
An example of how you would encourage somebody to create structure.
Oh, how encourage somebody to create structure. Okay, great question. Create your framework. The first thing that comes to mind is to create your framework for the day. You can think of it as a photograph frame and put in that frame, okay, what are the things that I want to accomplish today? What are my assignments for the day? What are the priorities for the day? They're in that frame. So in that frame, that keeps me focused. And then I'm free to work out a plan to allocate time and resources to those accomplishments. That's one example that comes to mind. Another example is to take a step back and understand not you personally, but for a person to understand what is your relationship with the word structure. And if there's an internal conflict, where's that conflict coming from? Yes, we as coaches do that with others. Okay, sometimes we need to do that with ourselves as well. Does that get your brain, does that get you jumpstart your thinking a little bit, Peter?
Yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what I needed.
Okay, great. Awesome. All right, fourth best practice. Rebound. So here's the thing in basketball. As good as the best player is, not every shot is going to go through the hoops and score 2 points or 1 point if it's a free throw. It's just, that's perfection, and that doesn't happen. So in rebounding on the court, the blocking out helps position ourselves to get that missed shot, but rebounding with self-leadership is an acknowledgement of leading inside out. How do I handle disappointment? How do I handle failure? How do I handle my mistakes? Oh boy, could I tell you a story early in my coaching career about a $10,000 mistake I made? I thought I was being tenacious. Well, actually, I was being stubborn. Well, that's another whole topic, you know, about grit. But how do we, in our self-leadership, how do we handle it when we make a shot or we're going for something and we miss the mark? Who has a thought about that? Just take a moment here and pause. How do you handle it, and how do you rebound after that happens? With humor, yes, that's great. I love humor, hence the bouncing ball. Again, that's to make sure we're all awake. I know some people always think, Jane, you are so silly. What's wrong with being silly sometimes? It helps us to stop, it helps us to pause, and it helps us to think. Deception, but focus to do better next time. Viewing failure as learning, fail forwards and celebrate the learning. Absolutely. With grace. Yes, Steve Curry is a good example. Absolutely. He can miss some threes, but still keeps pushing forward. In fact, there was one game in the playoffs. I don't remember the exact quotes, but I think he did not make one 3-point shot, which I understand was pretty not ever heard of from him. Those of you that follow the NBA. With lessons. I don't know, in the States, I don't know if this happens globally, but in the States, there's these inflatable people, and they're, you know, they just kind of go like this all over the place when a business is trying to get attention. The key is we're going to miss shots and we're going to miss our mark, even as prepared as we are. The key is how do we rebound from that? And again, that goes to resilience. That goes to, if I would imagine that everyone in this space together today has been discriminated in some form or fashion. I know I have. And not to get into that topic, but the key is, how do we rebound from that? How do you rebound from doing a job and you walk into a room and you're escorted out? Because it's your job to be there, but the people in the room don't want you there. How do you rebound from being a speaker in a group and people get up and walk out of the room because they're opposing, which they have a right to do, the speaking, or any other levels of discrimination? Could be monetary, could be anything. How do we rebound for that in our self-leadership? That's one of the questions to ask. Let me give you the last practice. And then, yes, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. The other comment, come back more determined and push forward. Yes. By golly, you may have gotten me down one time, but you're just going to have to deal with me again. All right, the last best practice that I have found for me is practice and play. Practice and play. In that basketball analogy and metaphor, we train, we would, when I was coaching, we would learn consistently. In fact, my players got to the point of, Coach, you make practice so hard, we're thankful when the game day gets here so that we can play and have fun. That's really as it should be to some degree, is to build that endurance mentally and physically, just like we did on game day, so that our muscle memory could kick into place. So when we are leading ourselves with our core, and our core is strength, is strong in our self-leadership, be it whatever your character, your operating system, your relationships, your emotional intelligence is, or maybe you have your core fives, which I gave you mine earlier, you develop your own core fives. That's what keeps us grounded. That's what keeps us leading from the inside out in the best way possible. We can leverage those previous lessons learned. We can go on instinct. It can be energizing. It can be fun. It can be joyful, even though it's challenging. One of the most memorable basketball games when I was coaching was, there were one or two teams that the women's team would play every year that they were way out of our league. And I did that intentionally on the schedule to build endurance, to build challenge, to build success. One particular game, there was a team like this way out of our league. There was no way we should have even been close to them. We went into triple overtime with that team. My team played their hearts out. They could hardly move in that third overtime, but they were going on instinct, gut, practice, because we had practiced and we had played. And we won the game. We weren't supposed to. We weren't even supposed to, be in the game. So when we stay aligned with ourselves and we practice our self-leadership, who knows what unexpected results we may experience at different point in time. So when we own who we are, that means we have to acknowledge who we are, we have to accept, we have to become aware, and we practice this I discipline. We position ourselves to have a greater influence to those around us as we lead from the inside out. I'm just going on a sense that no one would be in this space today or in any of the previous webinars in this summit if you weren't interested in being the best leader you could, especially around this topic of diversity and how that is impacting and what opportunities we have, to influence. So as you're thinking about whatever nuggets you have extracted and what you are beginning to put in place or be reminded of for your own self-leadership, I'm wondering, how would you rate your self-leadership today for yourself? And I'm not asking you to say that, but just ask yourself that question. How do I rate my self-leadership today? Is it a not so good standard, or is it a wow? Now I'm going to pause. I will ask you one last question in the last 30 seconds, but we're not there yet. And let's open the floor, Avni, and see what thoughts or comments this has been generated from the group so that we can learn from each other. That's the beauty of being together, the collective IQ of the group. So raise your hand with the or chat box or unmute yourself.
Yeah, what are your thoughts? What's your takeaways? What's coming up for you?
And Avni, let me just go ahead maybe to prompt some of that. This is the last question I want to ask you, or statement. Maybe think about this. My time here today has been valuable so that. And how would you fill in that blank? My time here today has been valuable so that. Maybe that will stimulate and jumpstart your thinking. I keep learning and sharing. I'm sorry, Avni, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to repeat that. Yes, exactly. Okay. Very nice. Others,
don't be shy. Step into your awesomeness. You don't have to turn on your camera. That's okay. I'm often on webinars. I'm not in a place that I can turn on my camera. So don't be shy. Step into your awesomeness. Yes, Alessandro.
I think I'm going to play basket finally for the first time in my life. And I really appreciate all the content and the eye discipline, yes, to focus on different, in your model, is an easy way to guide us or make a self-awareness point about our self-leadership. I think it's very interesting to make the points with us like that. Thank you so much.
If you're welcome. If it's been helpful for you, that's my whole objective, is to give us all something that we can apply. Avni, you got your, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Jen. Thank you. I'm turning off my camera because I am in the road and the street. So, but it was an amazing session, honestly. And there are two things that maybe will be very interesting on having this kind of thinking about self-leadership. It was discovery for me. And also I will put it in my plan to add it with the leadership cohort that I am actually running. So thank you for the learning, and I really enjoyed the session.
Good. Thank you for sharing, Duha. I hope I pronounced that name correctly. I think names are important. So if I mispronounce your name, please correct me.
It's correct. Thank you.
Okay. We've got about 2 minutes before I hand it back to Avni. So now's your time. Yes, Amina.
Thank you so much, Jane, for this beautiful session. I appreciated the fact that you used personal examples. And the most interesting part for me, the part that echoes most in my mind, is the fact of pivoting. It is, to me, pivoting is being always out of the comfort zone. I have to keep this on my mind every day. In the professional life or personal life, for me, it means a lot. The fact that you said, for example, poise, perspective, and position. Mm-hmm. These are strategic words, but that can help every day. I mean, it's tactical also.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing your insights, Amina. That's awesome. And I hope you all are seeing what others are sharing in the chat as well. Which, by the way, if any of you want to converse about this further, I'm happy to do that with you offline. You can email me. We can set up a virtual coffee. You know, if that's helpful, happy to do that. Jane at takethenextstepcct.com, or you can go to LinkedIn and send me a message there. All right, Avni, I think this is where I pass the ball to you for the great wrap up. And you know, I'll give a shameless plug. Kai and Juanita and I will be on after this for a panel, and some of this may, if you're able to stay, it may come up in that conversation, you know, as well. Avni, thank you very much for allowing this opportunity, Kai, to be with this group. You all have been great. Thank you for playing along and just participating. That is just awesome for growth. Avni, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jane, for all your contribution, you know, in helping us draw parallels and such clarity between basketball and life itself, right? Basketball and self-leadership through perspectives, boundaries, rebound, practicing this I discipline, knowing your 5 values and using them to really stand your ground and know who you are. So I absolutely loved it. Thank you so much, Jane. Everyone, I'd love you